Hey everyone, Dr. Richard Lai here with Study Acupuncture With Me. So if you're new here, I welcome you. My name is Richard. I'm a doctor of physical therapy and I'm an acupuncturist. So this is Study Acupuncture With Me, and the goal of Study Acupuncture With Me is very simple. We here take very complicated TCM topics and we make them as easy as possible to understand, so that way you feel confident when you're in the clinic and you feel confident when you're studying for your board exams. So today, what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about something you're probably experiencing right now, I know I am, and something you'll see every week in practice, which is patients presenting with fatigue and digestive issues. So in TCM, when you see those symptoms together, usually your mind should go directly to spleen. So today we're going to talk about spleen. So spleen, what does it do? Well, in Western medicine, when we think about the spleen, we think about it more from the perspective of the immune system, because it's a filter of blood. It is an organ that stores platelets. In traditional Chinese medicine, the spleen has somewhat of a very different role. The spleen is what we call the root of postnatal qi. So what that means is that it creates energy for us every single day. And ever since actually we're born, it creates energy for us. And it creates energy, but it depends on how healthy our spleen and our stomach is to create that energy. Basically, the spleen is going to take the food that we eat, and the stomach as well. It's going to digest food, and it's going to transform all that into qi and blood. That qi and blood then goes on to nourish every organ in our body and every tissue in our body. So if our spleen is weak, it's basically like our energy factory is running on half power. And so everything is going to slow down. Now, what happens when the spleen is weak? Basically, when the spleen is deficient, the function of the spleen is transformation and transportation. So it's transforming and transporting food and fluids. So that transformation and transportation is going to become sluggish. So instead of that food being turned into energy efficiently, we're going to get symptoms like fatigue. We're going to get symptoms like poor appetite. We're going to have abdominal bloating, especially after we eat. We're going to have loose stools. We're going to have a feeling of heaviness. Sometimes we might even feel some muscle weakness in our arms and legs, like they feel like they get fatigued easily or tired easily, or our arms and legs feel heavy. Now, the spleen also has a function of keeping things in place. So it holds all of our organs in place. It also holds blood in our vessels. So if the spleen is really weak, we might also see some other manifestations like prolapse, like hemorrhoids. We might even see varicose veins, or our patient might say they have this heavy or dragging sensation in their abdomen. So in clinic, other things your patient might say is like, I'm tired all the time. That's me right now. Even after I sleep, I'm tired. I feel bloated after I eat. That's another thing your patient might say. They might say, I crave sweets. Or they might say, after lunch, my energy, I crash. I need a coffee. So when you hear that combination, the fatigue, the post-meal fullness, the craving sweets, that's basically like your spleen waving like a little white flag, like I'm done, like I'm overworked. I don't have enough strength. I don't have enough power. Now, the other side of this is actually the emotional side. And a lot of times this is overlooked in our patients. So the spleen, we know that the spleen is related to our thought processes and it's related to our worry. So when someone is constantly thinking, when they're constantly studying, when they're analyzing things, that's like our students. When they are doing all this stuff, that mental overuse, it taxes our spleen. And that's why we see this pattern all the time. In this day and age, everyone is busy. Everyone is working 9 to 5, 5 to 9. Everyone's tired. Everyone's bloated. Everyone's craving sugar. Everyone is craving caffeine and drinking cold drinks, and everyone is just overworked. So when the spleen gets taxed from doing too much mental work, it's not going to be able to generate enough qi, which that's going to affect digestion. It's going to affect our energy even more. So now in terms of causes, the most common causes of spleen deficiency are actually, like we mentioned before, lifestyle issues. So things like, for example, working long hours, eating irregularly, skipping meals, eating too many foods that are cold in nature, or eating raw type foods like salads, overthinking, chronic stress. I'm sure this sounds exactly like you. or even just not resting enough after being sick. That can actually lead to a lot of spleen issues also. The spleen, if you want to know how to take care of it, just know what it likes. The spleen likes warmth. It likes rhythm. So you have to eat warm cooked foods. You have to have regular meal times. You have to moderate your activity. But what we tend to do instead is we drink iced coffee, we eat on the go, and then we work through all of our meals, right? So that's going to do what? That's going to slowly drain the spleen over time. So then when your patient presents to you in the clinic, when you look at their tongue is going to have that scallop formation. The tongue is going to be pale with those scallops or the teeth marks. They're going to have a thin white coat. When you palpate their pulse, the pulse is going to be weak. It's going to be soft. So when you see those two things together, when you see the pale tongue with the scalloped edges or the teeth marks with the weak pulse, that is screaming to us spleen qi deficiency. Now, if the spleen stays deficient for too long, what's going to happen is fluid accumulation. Fluids are going to start to accumulate. And that's when spleen qi deficiency turns into dampness. And so our patient is going to say something very different. They're going to say, I feel heavy overall. My head feels cloudy. My stomach feels like it's heavy. And that's because the spleen isn't transforming and transporting fluids appropriately. So dampness is going to accumulate, and that's going to cause heaviness to build up in their body. Their tongue and pulse is also going to present a little bit differently. They're going to have a thick tongue coat that's greasy in nature, and when you palpate their pulse, it will most likely be a slippery pulse. So when you're treating this kind of patient, you're not just treating deficiency, you also have to resolve dampness while you're supporting the spleen to help the fluids keep being transformed and transported. So the overall treatment principle, when we break it down, is that we want to tonify the spleen, we want to support digestion, and then if there's dampness in the body, we want to resolve the dampness. So some of the common points that we can use are things like stomach 36, spleen 3, Ren 12, spleen 6 is another good one as well, and of course, bladder 20. If the patient has some prolapse things too, you can put in like a do 20. That's actually very good for prolapse. And of course, with dampness, we want to use something like spleen 9. So the big takeaway here, or the big idea here, is basically that your spleen is like your body's energy generator. When it's strong, your digestion is going to be smooth, your energy is going to be steady, your mind is going to feel clear. But when it's weak, you're going to feel tired, you're going to feel heavy, you're going to feel like you have 20% battery all the time, all day. So that's why in the clinic, when a patient says that they're always fatigued, they feel bloated after eating, or they just don't feel very light, the first thing we should check is their spleen. All right, so that's today's topic, which is the spleen and how it's connected to all of those manifestations, like the fatigue and the digestive issues. Hopefully, this episode helped you in terms of identifying some of the manifestations related to the spleen. If you want to keep learning like this in small little chunks, I really highly recommend that you sign up for my Quick Win newsletter. You can sign up very easily at www.studyacupuncturewithme.com/quick-win. Basically, it is one exam style question straight to your email, multiple choice. You get the answer right at the end of the email. You can get through this in just 5 minutes. So make sure you sign up for that. All right, everyone. Until next time, God bless and happy studying.